what I'm gonna do this morning, normally I'm gonna be painting this with DIY clay-based paint and then putting a transfer on it. And I've already made the cushion for it. Although you normally don't prime or have to prime, especially when it's not a slick surface, before you use the clay and chalk based paints, I'm gonna prime this because it's old. It's been in, you know, in someone's shed for years, and someone built it before that. The closer you get to look at it, the more you can see the materials. This is just plywood, so when the plies, like if the cut edges get wet, they can expand and things like that. So I want to protect this so that whoever does own it in the future doesn't have a piece of furniture that has any kind of fail later on. And also, when you have something old like this, and this is just a dark stain, but it was also on sort of irregularly, and I don't know for how many years, you can end up with what's called bleed through, and that's after you've put on all of your layers of paint and then you put on your top coat, then it begins to have yellow or brown areas come through here and there that mess up your whole finish, and you've done all that work and it's sort of disappointing. So I don't want that to happen, because my husband and I have a lot of hours in this already, and I want to do a good job. So I'm using this Bullseye 123 primer. And whenever you're using a primer, especially whenever you're going over something, let's see if I can get it up there a little bit, especially when you're going over something dark, you want to use a colored primer like this one is like a light gray rather than a white, because believe it or not, white is actually a little harder to cover than the gray. Sometimes I know you see rust colored primers and lighter and darker gray colored primers, and that, or you can get your primers tinted, but that's depending on what your final coat is going to be. And our final coat is going to be sort of gragey, different colors, beiges and grays, and maybe a little bit of blue, so it's going to be lighter for the most part. So this is a good color primer. I'm glad that's what I had on hand. I didn't go buy it. And I found this, I don't know, each of these kind of rollers have these different colored lines and things on them that indicate if you are a frequent painter with that kind of thing, to let you know, oh, that's for smooth surfaces, or oh, that's for rough surfaces. I have no idea what kind of surface this is really for, because I just grabbed this one out of my husband's paint box. It wasn't one of mine. I couldn't find mine this morning. And that's what happens when you have half of your painting stuff at home and half of your painting stuff at work. But anyways, I love this little bucket thing, and it probably should have a liner, but I don't have a liner. And you can see the last two paint colors that I used in it, but I have the smaller bucket for hand painting, but this one works with a little roller. I got this at Sherwin-Williams. So you don't want to, even if I could fit my roller in this can, you don't want to contaminate the rest of your paint. Learned a good tip from Jennifer Allwood yesterday. Remember not to pour, if you're going to pour your paint out and possibly be sloppy, don't pour it over your label and then not be able to tell later on what it is that you have. But I just wanted to come to you this morning and talk about the fact that I am going to prime this. You can see, I think, on this footboard piece where there has been a little sanding of some sort there. And anytime it's been sanded or cut or fiddled with since the first finish goes on, then you have the chance of tannins from the wood bleeding through. So I'm going to use a chip brush. These little El Cheapos, we sell these at our store for like $1.50. You can get them at Lowe's for like $1.50, Home Depot, wherever you shop. And you can throw this away afterwards. Around the spindles and in the little crevices and things like that, obviously I'm not going to be able to do that with a roller, so I'm going to do that with my chip brush, which if it's not easy to clean at the end, I'm going to chunk. Larger flat surfaces, I'm going to paint with the roller so that I don't leave a million brush marks. Let's start with the little rolling part and see how that goes. I'm also gonna put a coat on the very back side and on the back of this, and then we're gonna put some wood from there down. And that normally you wouldn't have to finish the back of a piece like this, but you know, what if it goes in someone's home, you know, in the center of their living room rather than up against a wall? You want to try to think of everything that you could possibly think of when you're doing a piece. Of, you know, if this was a dresser or something like that, it would be a different story. But with it being a piece that could go in a bedroom or in a living room or, you know, a den or something like that, you want to make sure that you finish and paint the back as well in case they use it in the middle of the room. This is where the seat will be, and it will be screwed down here, so this really doesn't have to be finished. If this was, and there was no need for this to be, you know, made out of treated wood or anything because it's not an exterior product. This gray primer is also going to mean there's no difference in color tone that's going to show through on the pieces of raw wood versus the pieces of previously stained wood in the end. That's also a very good reason for using a tinted primer. I'm going to stop just for a second and grab, because I'm not going to keep you here for the entire process of this, but I do want to show you with the chip brush is where we'll go into these details, into the line details up front and the curved areas. I am going to be very careful to make sure there's no runs or anything like that. But this piece, and I know that it's going to be hard to tell from the camera, this piece is flat right here. Whoever built this is probably a porch rail, for some reason decided to flatten off the edges of the rounded pieces. And I'm guessing that was a decorating style that they were going for. But that did leave those areas more prone to cannon bleeds and having the inner parts of the wood coming through the finish later on. So I definitely want to make sure and get a good coat of the primer. Plywood is very thin pieces of wood all glued together to make it stronger than an actual piece of solid wood. And it's a little bit less expensive because they can use all the ugly pieces and the scraps and things like that. But that does, once you cut into it, or even if you don't cut into it, the ends and the corners and the edges, plywood is not solid wood. Here, so I'm going to get to work on this piece, and I'll throw in some pictures later when it's completely primed and the primer's dry before we put the paint on. I appreciate you. Thanks.